It's the start of the golf season, and if you're like me, you probably haven't swung a club for the past few months. So the question is, how do you get your game back quickly without burning yourself out, or even worse, getting injured? In this video, I'm going to share with you how I got to near peak form within just 1 week. And I'll tell you guys, it's more than just hitting the range. There's a physical and a mental aspect, and if you're not working on both of those, then your progress is going to take even longer. If you're new here, my name is Chonger. I'm an average golfer with the goal of trying to get to scratch. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Follow along on this journey with me as I document the whole thing, including sharing weekly lessons, talking about different gear and gadgets that help me improve. So yeah, hopefully see you guys along on this journey. So if you have been following my journey, you would know the past few months I have been recovering from a concussion, so I haven't touched a golf club since. And the first range session back was a bit rough. I don't know why I actually ended up going. Driving there, I was a bit dizzy still. So when I was swinging the club, still a bit dizzy. I didn't even get to finish a small bucket of balls. I had to leave halfway through. But for the short time that I was there, I was making great contact. I found all my backswing positions. I felt similar to my old form, and I was actually quite happy. And I think why I did so great in that particular range session was because I had zero expectations. You know, I was just almost happy to be at the range and trying to swing a club, let alone I wasn't overthinking a bunch of things in my head and trying to work on a bunch of things. You know, I kept it really simple and I managed my expectations, and I think that's why it went well. So after that first range session, I waited a couple of weeks before going back to the range. The second time, I was a little bit dizzy, but I was just trying to push through it. As my doctor was saying, you know, you gotta challenge your mind. You can't just do nothing. But obviously, if it gets really bad, then I'm gonna stop. But I didn't need to stop, fortunately, so I was recovering and I was in the right direction. However, my golf swing going the opposite direction. The contact, everything was just horrible. And I think that's because in my first range session, I did a lot better than I initially expected. I had higher expectations going into it. So as I was saying, the first one went well because I had lower expectations, but the second one, I think my expectations were too high. You know, I thought I'd be back at my original form. I tried to implement a bunch of new things that I learned on YouTube during my time off, and that went horribly wrong. And I think that is when you're in the rebuilding phase, you shouldn't be focusing on changing too many things. You should just try to get back to your original swing before starting a bunch of new stuff. Don't work on everything all at once. Just focus on some key fundamentals and don't try and overcomplicate things. Okay, so fast forward a couple of weeks, I ended up taking another break just because I was slightly dizzy after that second range session, so I didn't want to push my luck. And so now we're at the present day, and I went back to the range, and this is where the big week happened. I had a great range session. I was hitting the ball very well. This was pretty much back to my original form. And then I go play a round of golf. I shoot one of the worst scores imaginable. I shoot a 104. At the time, I was very disappointed in myself after a great range session. And it wasn't until after the round that I reflected on it. And, you know, I'm actually very happy that I shot that score because it allowed me to really analyze my game and find out where I'm actually losing the strokes. And so the good news is it boils down to only a couple of aspects in my game, which can be easily fixed. And so that is why when I think that you are getting back into the game of golf, just play around a golf because you're gonna get a realistic expectation of where your game is at, because this is when you're playing under pressure, you're not at the range, and you have unlimited tries. This will give you a hard look at what you need to work on. And if you do want to improve fast or get back to your old self, you have to face these weaknesses. So after evaluating my game, here is what went well and what I'll continue doing. So the first thing is I was pretty strong off the tee. I was really embracing my baby fade on my driver, and my 2-iron was a weapon. It was a nice fairway finder. So off the tee, I had very little problems. And second, my iron contact was very clean. I didn't hit any shanks. I did hit a couple of shots on the thinner side, but it still went straight. So I was very happy with my iron results. And that's because I've been working on my iron game so much with Tim that, I think that's starting to translate into my game. Now, what actually tanked my scores? So the first thing is wedge shots under like 120 yards. I was consistently hitting them to the right. And I think that might have just been an overcompensation and a little mental error, just because in my lessons, you would remember that I would always hook my wedges. So maybe subconsciously I was leaving the face open and maybe I was scared to close it. And so that's why they'd always end up floating over to the right. And my second weakness was putting. I even had one hole where I got a 6 and I 5-putt that hole. So it was a par 3. I hit it maybe to like 20 feet and yeah, absolute disaster. I had poor speed control. I just couldn't get used to these slower greens. And when I did hit it harder, I just blew it past the hole. Further, I missed some easy 3-footers. I just didn't take the time to line up my putts and that cost me some strokes. I haven't practiced putting since I have gotten injured. And also during my lessons, we haven't touched on putting yet, which we will soon. So, I'm not too bummed out on, but it does suck that I'm losing a lot of strokes to putting. In the meantime, I can do some putting practice at home. I have a mirror, I have a mat, so at least I can get a little reps in. But I think within the next couple lessons with Tim that we will be touching on the putting, so hopefully my scores will get lower after that. And the last major area of mistake was club selection. So for instance, there was a creek that was 220. I ended up hitting a soft 2-iron, but I should have hit a 5-iron just to be safe. So that way I would have avoided the creek because, should avoid these penalty shots when you can, and it was such a stupid mistake. So just gotta be more mindful of that, picking the right club based on your current situation of where you're at and how you're feeling. And yeah, so now that I know what's broken, it's time to fix it. So one of the things that I identified was the wedge shots. So at the range, I'm working on a lot of 80-yard shots, just trying to get them not going right and get that visualization in my mind that the ball can go straight. And it's like a mental reset. I'm not seeing the ball right, I'm not seeing the ball left, I'm seeing it where it's supposed to go. And so hopefully when I get out into a game, then it'll be just that. But also I can touch on all this stuff with Tim during a lesson. We can further just cement this, and so hopefully this won't be a problem going forward. And as I touched on in the intro, there are a couple of things outside of the golf range practice that you need to be doing to work on your golf game. And the first one is strength training. So I learned my lesson the hard way last year, as I was pretty short on time and I stopped going to the gym for a bit so I could focus more on golf. But what I found was constant repetitions of golf can have some effects on your body that you might not realize if you're continuously working out. So my forearms got really tight as I kept gripping the club and swinging, and you can kind of feel that tension. But if you're working out, you're lifting dumbbells or doing pull-ups, your forearms are constantly getting work inadvertently and they're being strengthened. So you don't feel these kind of effects that you do when you're just constantly swinging a golf club. So strength work is good for injury prevention, but it's also great for golf performance. You could get higher speed, so that results to better distance. And I will be filming a video in a couple of weeks with a golf gym in Vancouver. So we're gonna be going through a golf assessment. So I'm excited to share that with you guys. And the second thing is the mental game. So you would have seen that with just my wedge shots, as I might have subconsciously thought to myself, I don't want to see the ball go left, so that caused it to go right. But let me share with you an example of how a good mental game can save your hole. So this is why you want to continue to work on it. So there was a par 4, it was the 18th hole actually, and my round before was very bad, but this hole, could change. It's a dog leg right, so it favors a fade. And I believe the green is maybe like 300 or 320. But if you do cut the trees on the right-hand side, you can definitely reach the green. And because I'm playing a fade, this hole is set up for me. So I'm thinking I want to land this on the green. I take a big swing and I whiff on it and I top the ball, it goes like 20 feet. I pick up my 5-iron and I tell myself, you know, you've been hitting this 5-iron great all day. All you need is a little fade around this tree. You can still save this hole. I hit a crispy 5-iron, but I hit a tiny bit close. It goes through the tree, so it does end up losing a bit of distance. But you know, I'm about 140 yards away from the hole. So after 2 defeating shots, you know, the top drive and the 5-iron going through the tree, I could have given up, but I told myself, you hit a great 5-iron, nice contact. You just got a little unlucky with that tree. Let's pick up this 9-iron. Let's hit another great shot. And you know what? I did just that. I hit it to 10 feet and I sunk the par putt. So I'd have to say that mindset flipped that hole. A good mindset allowed me to really focus in and still stay within that hole. If I would have given up, then, you know, maybe I'll get a double or a triple. So in conclusion, and just to recap, if you're coming back from a long layoff, don't worry. There's a few things that you need to keep in mind. 1, manage your expectations. 2, if you're going through some swing changes, don't do everything all at once. Just try to work on the fundamentals, keep it simple. 3, play around so that way you get a realistic expectation of where your game is at and what you need to work on. 4, build strength off the course. And 5, mental game is very important because it can make or break your round. So if this video helped you, smash that like button, subscribe if you aren't already, follow along on this journey with me. Drop a comment down below. I'm curious, what is the hardest part of coming back after a long break of golf? And anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one. Peace out.